Morning, everyone. That's a fantastic introduction. I'd like to thank Rod Taylor as well for having me here. I'm a long way from home. I don't have a translator, so I hope you can understand my accent. Yeah, just a little bit about me. I'm an author and a blogger. My book is called Paleo Fitness. I blog at thefitnessexplorer.com. I've had quite an interesting journey when it comes to fitness, and Paleo Fitness explores part of that, basically discussing movement that is optimal for health. I'm also a movement coach as well as a clinical nutritionist. This is one of my clients. This is a 12-week transformation. He's 40 years old, or he was 40 years old when this was taken. It's quite a difficult journey for him prior to his introduction to me. And we had quite a lot of success in a very short space of time. 40 years is kind of too old for me, to be honest. I like to engage with children of all ages, from the very youngest here. She's about 6-7 months old. I was hosting a Primal play session in Ancestral Health Symposium, and what was really fascinating is that she really wanted to engage with all of the movements that we were doing, and of course she kind of outshone us all. It was kind of effortless for her. I think it's really important to start them young. So, getting serious now, we do have a global problem, and it affects us all, wherever we're from, whatever part of the world, the developing world as well as the developed world, and that's 63%. So in 2008, globally, 63% of us die prematurely from a chronic lifestyle disease. That's about a death a second. The amazing thing about this 63% is that all these deaths are preventable. It's all based on how we live our lifestyle. The World Health Organization state that by 2030, it's going to be 75%. It's a remarkable number. I mean, if you think about the people in this room, probably only the first 2 or 3 rows here will be exempt. The rest of you are kind of finished. But you guys there, the 25% are okay when it comes to chronic lifestyle disease. So what can we do to prevent the majority of these chronic lifestyle diseases? Well, diet is one, extremely important. That's kind of why we're here. We know that food can either be medicine or it can be poison. But also activity. Physical inactivity is detrimental to health. Too much activity is harmful to health. Our environment, toxins, our social environment, the people that we have relationships with, is also extremely important. The cosmetics we use, the toiletries we use, also extremely important. Sleep, we either don't get enough of it, we don't appreciate it, we don't get the quality of sleep that we need. All of these areas combined are the determinants of health, and the World Health Organization in 1948 was remarkable in the fact that their definition of health was not just the absence of health. You know, it wasn't just about being sick or having some sort of ailment. It was about the complete social, mental, and physical well-being. That was their definition of optimal health. So what's the solution? Well, in my mind, does everyone know what this is? It's a London double-decker bus. This is probably from the 1950s. But remarkably, this provides the key to a lot of the issues that we have in the present day, believe it or not. Does anyone know what it is? Anyone know why this is so important? Anyone?
It's study on the health of bus drivers versus the conductors. The conductors will help people feel downstairs.
I tell you what, I shouldn't have spoken to you before this presentation. There's always one, isn't there? There's always one. But thank you very much. Yeah, that's exactly right. There was a study done, a landmark study in the Lancet in 1953 with over 30,000 people. And what was interesting about this study was heart disease became a concern at the beginning of the 20th century. It started to overtake some of the previous diseases causing death. So at the beginning of the 20th century, it was tuberculosis, influenza. Those were diseases, infectious diseases were the number one killers. Heart disease started to become prominent. Heart disease, stroke, cancer. And scientists started to question, why is that? This landmark study looked at two populations, bus drivers and bus conductors. What was interesting about that population is they ate similar diet, there were same numbers of smokers, non-smokers, they came from the same sort of locality, their lifestyles were pretty much identical apart from their occupation. The bus drivers were sedentary 90% of the time. The bus conductors were helping passengers on and off the bus, they were running up and down the stairs, collecting tickets. And what was interesting, looking at cardiovascular disease, they were a third less likely, bus conductors were a third less likely to die from heart disease. And they were twice as likely, if they had a heart attack, to survive from a cardiovascular event. So it's quite fascinating. Everything else being equal, activity was really important when it came to preventing chronic lifestyle dysfunction. Coming close to the present day, this is a study by Stephen Blair in 2009, and he was looking at the impact of physical inactivity in comparison to other risk factors that we're pretty well aware of. So type 2 diabetes increases your risk of early death. Hypertension, in many cases identified as the single biggest risk factor. 13% of all deaths globally is estimated are caused by having high blood pressure. Smoking, it's pretty obvious. Obesity is also a risk factor. But the most important risk factor, this is over a 12-year period, this study, over 12 years. The most important risk factor for premature death was identified as a low level of cardiovascular fitness, a sedentary lifestyle. It's quite an interesting study. And when I first looked at this and I thought about what does kind of sedentary mean, I don't believe anyone is truly sedentary. Sedentary is just the fact you spend less than 150 minutes a week of moderately intense activity. 150 minutes. 30 minutes or so a day of pretty intense, elevated heart rate, getting out of breath. Some people don't achieve that. A lot of people don't achieve that. It also incorporates an hour or so of quite physical, heavy-duty, intense resistance exercise. So on that basis, a lot of us actually are sedentary. If you want to take a photo of this, this is probably about, there are hundreds of studies here that I've condensed onto one slide. If you at all convinced, when people talk about physical activity, they say, there isn't much evidence about physical activity and losing weight. We often talk about, I've changed my diet, I haven't changed my exercise patterns, and I've lost lots of weight. The fact is, exercise has really got nothing to do with losing weight. It really has to do with changing your health profile and your health status. Almost every single thing you can do in your life in terms of detrimental to your health can be rectified or rebalanced through physical activity. Reduced all-cause mortality. That's every single cause of death is reduced if you're physically active. Every single cause of death. There's a reduction in morbidity. So that's taking into account whether you smoke, whatever your age is, your cholesterol profile, your blood pressure levels, your blood glucose levels. All of that is taken into account, but it's still affected predominantly by your levels of activity. Reduced cardiovascular events and death. We discussed that earlier based on the study in the 50s. Reduction in stroke, 20%, reduction in hypertension, reduced obesity, metabolic syndrome, cancers. There's about 6 cancers. There's very strong evidence that physical activity is supportive of reduction in cancer. It also improves function. It increases the likelihood of independent living for the elderly, less likely to fall, increases your balance. It improves musculoskeletal ability. The quality of life in terms of mental health is also improved significantly through physical activity. So I'm going to tell you a little bit about my first client. This is Canary Wharf in London. This is the financial district. My first client worked in banking. This is a before and after. I purposely don't have a before and after picture because I think it's far more important to look at some of the health markers. So this individual was hypertensive. That's a very high, I mean the doctors in the audience I'm sure will tell you that's a pretty ridiculous reading when it comes to high blood pressure. That was at rest, after 20 minutes rest in a dark room, that reading. Fasting glucose, so this individual was pre-diabetic, not far off being diabetic, type 2 diabetic. Lipid profile was awful, so the ratios of good to poor cholesterol, elevated triglycerides, VLDL was extremely high, body fat percentage was 26%. Most of this was visceral, sort of around the middle, and also it was skinny fat. So this person kind of looked okay from the outside, but internally had high levels of body fat. That's known as TRFI, thin on the outside, fat on the inside, toffee. Also, quite a lot of physical ailments, low back pain, knee problems, ankle problems, just didn't feel good. In other words, they were just pretty much a sick bunny. After a short intervention, looking after their diet, looking at activity, look at the improvements. Blood pressure became optimal, blood glucose normalized, lipid profile was fantastic, body fat dropped down to 10%, visceral fat decreased, fat around the middle decreased. In terms of musculoskeletal problems, no issues. That was a 6-month intervention for this individual. The most remarkable thing about my first client was that was actually me. Come on. I was my first client. I went to my doctor, I had an annual health checkup. We call them MOTs in the UK. That's what we do, an annual checkup for our car, called an MOT. Some of us can also afford one for ourselves as adults. I had one, and basically I had all of that bad news presented on the left-hand side. And I asked my GP, what can I do about this? And he says, it's pretty simple. We just put you on some meds, and we can sort out your blood pressure, we can sort out your blood glucose, everything will be fine. We'll give you some pain relief for all the aches and pains that you have, etc., etc., etc. I said, how long am I going to be on this for? He went, well, pretty much for the rest of your life. And I was like, is there an alternative? Let's have a look at your lifestyle. What are you doing with your lifestyle? I'm on a low-fat, whole-grain diet, etc., etc., etc. I go to the gym several times a week. And he said, there isn't really much you can do because you seem to be doing all the right things. That led me to researching the Paleolithic lifestyle, evolutionary medicine. That was a gateway to me recognizing how much power that I had as an individual to really look after myself in terms of prevention rather than cure. And I've been living that lifestyle now for 10 years. So, we talk about the modern hunter-gatherer, don't we, quite a lot, mimicking our ancient ancestors. And if only it was this simple, you go into your grocery store, you go into your supermarket, you can chase the trolleys, you can kind of spear, hunt for your meat. It isn't that simple. We just don't move as much as we should. That's the reality of the present day. And when I kind of really think about this, I recognize that a lot of us here, even though we lied before me, says, I love exercise. A lot of us don't love it at all, we hate it. I'm definitely in the I hate to exercise category. I used to believe that if I spent the right money, if I joined the right gym, if we had nice fluffy towels and a spa, that I would love exercise. The reality was that I didn't really. I recognized the benefits of exercise, I recognized that it was healthy to undertake physical activity, but I didn't really love it. I mean, look at the pain and anguish on this young lady's face. And the guy standing above her telling her, just do another 10 press-ups now, just go for it, punish yourself, because you're going to feel great when you finish. What about the experience whilst undertaking exercise? So, I hate it as well. I hate exercise. So, this is my suggestion on what we need to do. We need a new approach, a new convention when it comes to fitness. And I think we should get fit. That's F-I-T-T A, okay? So I think movement should be modeled based on our ancestral movement patterns. So movement should be functional, but it should be more important than that. It should be beyond function. It should be practical. It should be integrative. In other words, I shouldn't just be thinking of movement as a hobby. You know, I work all day, then I spend 30 minutes or an hour undertaking my fitness session. I'm going to move during that 60 minutes. Actually, I should be thinking about movement throughout the day. From waking up in the morning until I retire at night, I should have some sort of engagement and involvement with movement. It should be transformative. If I don't feel instant gratification from activity, I don't want to undertake it. You know, we have more than enough punishment in our lives and stress in our lives, so why should we add another stressor to kind of working out really hard in the gym? And we should also involve some team play. Too much of what we do is in isolation. Too much of what we do is about forgetting about everyone else and just concentrating on our own goals and our own individual pursuit. So I think teamwork or team play, the social aspects of movement is also really important. So the 3 key principles are: the experience should be really powerful, the movement should be practical, and it should also be playful. And that's a definition of my movement methodology, which is Primal Play. So, I'm sure you've seen the headlines recently, in recent years, about sitting. Sitting is a new smoking. Sitting is killing you. If you're sitting 8 hours a day, it doesn't matter what exercise you do, you can't undo the damage. And it sounds quite interesting superficially, but the reality is, it's not about sitting necessarily. That's the problem. It's how we sit. You know, most of us here are sitting on chairs. Our bodies are, you know, we want to fall asleep. It's quite fatiguing sitting on a chair. The muscles are deactivated. We start to lose focus and concentration. In the developing world, people tend to sit in a squat position without the support of anything else. The body is constantly working, even in a seated position. But most importantly, looking at something like the tobacco companies many years ago who are now being sued because they were encouraged, coerced to smoke, because Hollywood stars were smoking, doctors were endorsing smoking as an activity that was going to lead to better health. And I thought to myself, can you imagine IKEA being sued in like 20, 30 years for like selling you a chair? You know, I bought a chair off you IKEA 30 years ago, and now I'm suffering from all those problems relating to sitting down, so you're going to be sued. It's not going to happen. But it's quite a serious issue. This is a Covent Garden tube underground station, and the problem is, even if you make the decision that you want to be more active, everywhere you look, they're accused to tell us movement is dangerous. Don't walk. Don't take the stairs. I arrived in Sydney. Got off the airplane. You know, there's a travelators as soon as you get off the plane. There were signs telling you the stairs are actually the emergency exit if you take the stairs. Don't take your luggage on the stairs, you know, because it's dangerous. So everywhere you look, there are all these signs telling us to avoid even walking. I created a mock-up poster here that I sent to Boris Johnson, the Mayor of London, and basically letting people know that it's actually pretty useful and helpful to walk, to utilize our environment as our gym, not to just focus on taking the stairs as an option that we do when the lifts are broken down or the escalators aren't working, but we should actually integrate movement into our life. So, I really believe it's important not just to work out, but to play out. That's basically what I really believe is important. And on that basis, and after sitting down for most of this session, I would like you to stand up. I would like you to explore some of this playful movement. And if I could get Joe to join me on stage. I know he's up for a bit of play. So, I don't have much time, but we've got a couple of minutes or so. Is that okay, Rod?
All good.
So, all good, Rod? So, I'm now going to be off the mic. Maybe, can you all hear me okay? Okay, so, hope you can hear me okay? Yeah? Those at the back? Good? All right, so. 1, 2, okay. So, you're going to partner up for this one. Okay? Pick a partner, somebody you don't know. Hi, Joe and Darryl. Okay? All right. So make sure you've got a little bit of free space. little bit of free space. So this is what you're going to do. We're going to play a version of tag, which I call Primal tag. Okay? It's not a tag that you're a kid and you're running around all over the place, getting really tired in a short space of time. We're going to stay fairly close. Okay? We're going to look at our partner, engage with our partner, and you can only tag between the hip and the knee. Okay? That's it. Simple as that. Avoid the crown jewels. Alright? Hip and the knee. Alright, so I'll just demonstrate now so you can see exactly what I mean. Okay, you play it simultaneously. Okay? 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10. So the idea is you're both playing the game, not just one individual. Give that a whirl. I'm going to run through a few more examples of front leg. So, young lady, your name? Karen? Karen, sorry. Yeah, so after the demonstration, Karen says, oh, it's not fair, you've got longer arms. And it's a very good point because kids do this quite well. They start making excuses for whatever they do. And no, to be honest, the adults do it far better than kids. So I start playing this and people start thinking, he's taller than I am, he's got shorter hair than I have, he's English, they won the Ashes last time, so maybe he's going to better this time. You know, he's older than I am, he's younger than I am. So we make all these excuses, and the reality is, I may have a longer reach, but you know, Joe's going to have a better center of gravity, he may have better balance, he may be able to lunge better, his knees may be in much better shape than mine. Thank you very much. The kids also do that as well, they pretend they were going to say something. But the important thing is that the reality is life is kind of unfair, and what you're really interested in here is not beating your opponent. That's not my goal. My goal is really trying to assess what my weaknesses are, and also to make sure we're just completely engaged and having a good time. That's the real purpose of this. Okay, got another demonstration? Yeah. Alright, so this one's called light touch, light fingers, okay? So you're going to basically touch fingers to fingers, okay? Alright, I'm going to do the same with the other hand. Alright, so what we're trying to, can you all hear me? Yeah. Okay, so what we're trying to do here is, this is going to be exploring as much three-dimensional movement as possible. So the only goal is, if I'm the coach, okay, is Joe's going to just try and keep in contact with my fingers, whatever I do. Okay. Alright. Okay, so whatever I do. Okay. Yeah, help me up. Alright, so you can make it as adventurous or not, as you wish. Okay? So you can start off nice and gentle and graceful, just kind of a little bit of resistance. Okay, go on single leg to test your balance. Okay, twist if you want to, back. Okay, give that a whirl. Really explore what the body's capable of. And that includes you, Dr. Z. Okay. So, for some of us, especially doctors, it's quite a serious point. Some of this can be quite embarrassing. For some of this, it can be difficult to get out of the mindset. You know, people are watching. I can't really let myself go. But again, the whole point is you want to it's good to be tactile, it's good to experience and explore movement with someone else. I'll just do one more example. Is that okay? Okay, this is one of my, this is fun for me. So what we're going to do is, as a kid, I remember watching all the superheroes, kind of Batman, Superman, whoever, and every now and again we'd be in the playground and we would play fight, okay? And the play fighting would be, there'd be a few rules. One rule was there'd be no contact, so anyone could take part. The second, it would always be in slow motion. Okay? And third, you'd make lots of sound effects. Okay? So we play fights. It doesn't matter what, if you do some martial arts, great. If you don't, it doesn't really matter. So the point is, it's non-contact, you don't hurt each other, but again, you're exploring movement, you're putting lots of effort in, you know, really nice and slow. Okay, normally if you have slow motion, the voice is all so slow. So if I'm being in here, then it should be, it wouldn't be both, it would be both. Okay, so it's really important to visualize, to feel what the movement would be like. Okay, so you ready? It's okay. So, you get some recoil, counter-attack. Then we can get away with it. It's a bit aggressive, this one. Okay, so let's give that a whirl. So, I apologise, I'm just going to another 10 or so seconds. Can I get someone on stage who's active gym going, pretty strong, quite capable guy to come on stage? Anyone? Okay, come on. So, it's probably a little unfair because of the shoes. Are you okay? You want to be barefoot?
Yeah.
Yeah? Because you're not going to get much traction with those shoes, so we'll go barefoot. But this is for people who kind of question if play has any merit when it comes to really getting fitter or stronger, or any of those things that we want from our training protocol. And I'm going to show you that you can play some pretty simple games that can really improve your strength way beyond measure. Okay? And this is kind of the primal aspect of primal play. It's finding out what's kind of guttural and instinctive about movement. This is pretty simple. We can all try this before I close the session. This is a one-person tug of war. Simple as that. Okay? So what we do here is you've got three choices of grip, hand grip. You can either go for a handshake grip, like so. You can go for an arm wrestle grip, which is a little bit better, like so. Or you can go for the buddy grip. So anyone seen cliffhanger? Stallone, that's the grip he always used when he's showing off how strong he is at cliff edge. But this is a very good grip to go for. And what you're trying to do here is just change your partners if you want to dig in. Okay? Do you do any strength work in the gym?
Yeah.
Okay. So strong guy. Okay. And the whole purpose here. Okay. The whole purpose here. You ready?
Yeah.
Go, pull. Okay. So, just look at the difference between us both here. You ready? Get set. So, did you see the difference in the level of effort and energy expenditure between my partner and I? I was relatively relaxed, still hard work, but the point is you can really start tapping into primal instinctive movement. Okay? Try that with your partner. Thanks so much. Thank you. Cheers. Okay guys, just like to thank you all very much for your time. I hope you had a good time. I've probably got a couple of my books left for sale called Paleo Fitness. If you really like what I do, I'd appreciate you visiting my blog, thefitnessexplorer.com. I'm going to be launching primalplay.com shortly. So if you feel that you would benefit from a little bit more play in your lives, then please feel free to follow me on social media. I'm Darryl Edwards, otherwise known as the Fitness Explorer, and I hail from London, England. Thank you very much.